Welcome back to Sick Sad Lit. I'm your host, Jen Eastwood, and today's episode is not only one I've been wanting to share with you for a long time, but it's also the season 2 finale. And that feels fitting because this conversation fundamentally changed the way that I read books. Talking to today's guest made me slow down and realize just how much architecture, intention, and emotional engineering goes into a truly masterful novel. Since this interview, I've stopped chasing page counts and started paying attention to structure, rhythm, and craft to figure out how a book works and not just how many I can get through to meet an arbitrary goal. And that shift is because of Agustina Bazterrica. Agustina has a degree in art from the University of Buenos Aires, works as a cultural administrator, and has served on juries for major literary awards like the Premio Fonda Nacional de las Artes. Please forgive my pronunciation if I just butchered that. She writes essays and fiction, and she's published a short story collection and 3 novels. But she's best known for Tender as the Flesh, the literary horror sensation that won the Clarín Novel Prize, became the finalist for the Goodreads Choice Awards, and was named one of the best books of the year by the Washington Post and Vogue. The novel went on to become a global phenomenon, selling over 600,000 copies in the United States and more than 1 million copies worldwide. It's also been translated into more than 30 languages. I am not exaggerating when I say that I think about this novel pretty much every single day since I finished reading it. It was that impactful on me. Agustina's work sits at the crossroads of horror, philosophy, and political critique. Her fiction is devastatingly precise, with absolutely nothing left to chance. In today's conversation, we talk about the craft behind that precision, the scaffolding underneath her novels, the meticulous choices that create dread without ever raising the volume, and the emotional and societal wounds she writes from. We talk about cruelty, capitalism, bodies, art, and why horror is sometimes the only language that tells the truth. So, settle in, and I hope you enjoy this season finale episode. Thank you so much for being with me. Enjoy this conversation with Agustina Bazterrica. Tell us a little bit about the kinds of books you write for anybody who may not be familiar with you.
Well, the thing with my books are that people tend to classify them in, for example, horror, gender. For example, in United States, Tender as the Flesh is a bestseller, and it's qualified there in horror. And I don't believe I write horror. I believe everything is literature, and in Argentina, my books are read as dystopias, but some people, they put them in this box of ecofeminist, and other people put them in boxes of almost a social comment. I don't know. The thing is that in a sense is amazing, because what I do when I write is that I mixture everything. I read a lot of poetry. I read a lot of essays. One of the questions they ask me generally in the United States is what horror books inspired to write Tender as the Flesh? And it's none, because I read a lot of essays, for example. I read Levi-Strauss and I read other people. But of course, they are dark books, they're all dark books. And I do think that I write like that because I need to understand the violence of the world we live in, why we are still living in the patriarchy, why we are still having to explain that women they have the same value as men. Like, I think it's crazy, So I try to understand that, although I don't have one answer. I try to get in a search, in a personal search with each book to understand things.
I remember I will never, ever forget where I was and what I was doing when I read Tender as the Flesh, which is the first of your work that I read. Mm-hmm. And I have to say it is one of the most memorable books I've ever read in my life. That is no exaggeration. I'm serious when I say I think about it almost every day. That
Wow.
is true story. And it's interesting what you say about how in the United States it's classified as a horror, because while there are, my view on it is like, while there are certainly elements of horror in it, I also wouldn't classify it as a horror necessarily. I mean, life is a horror, like the world is horror, and it to me didn't feel unrealistic either, like in terms of where we might, the trajectory of society. How do you feel about the virality of Tender is the Flesh?
Great. I'm really grateful. I mean, when I wrote the book, when I was writing the book, I didn't even think that I was going to be published, because I finished the book 10 days before presenting the manuscript to a prize here that is called the Clarín Prize. It's a contest, literary contest, and it's one of the most important contests in Latin America. And of course, I thought I'm not going to win this, but I need to finish this novel. So it's my deadline. This contest is my deadline. But I won. So winning that prize and also all the translation, more than 30 languages now, and the repercussion in countries as United States, but also other countries. I think United States, because it's really big, so you can sell a lot. But you have other countries like, I don't know, how you say, Czechoslovakia, I don't know in English, but there, The Tender is the Flesh is a bestseller, or in Turkey, also. So there, the markets are smaller, but also it has a lot of repercussion, and I'm really grateful. Like, I'm living the dream actually, because I worked for 22 years as a secretary in a law firm to pay my rent.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I couldn't live off my books. And the fact that I'm not only living of my books in Argentina, that it's a really difficult country to live in terms of economics, because we are always living in a crisis and we are always having inflation, and now it's really expensive to live here. But I am living of my books, and also I'm traveling a lot, and that it's a privilege. I know a lot of writers that are really great and they have a lot of talent, and they're not traveling. So the fact that I am, I'm really grateful. Of course, traveling, it has a cost. Like, sometimes it's really tiring, because you're not going to have, I don't know, caipirinhas or having, you're not going to relax. You're not on vacations. You're working. Although I love what I do, you have to be prepared. Now in Spain, in Avilés, I talk in front of almost 800 people. Like, you have to have the presence to do that, but well, I mean, I prefer to be doing that and being tired than being in an office talking about invoices, like.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Goodness, it's you're right. I often think about what the world would be like if capitalism didn't exist and people had the freedom to create art and share their art with the world without having to sell their souls doing something else, or unfortunately needing a day job to
I
survive.
mean, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes your job, like, suffering sometimes it's better for the art,
That's
like
true.
you can convert that years of, I don't know, having a shitty job, although I'm grateful for that job also, but I've been there for 22 years, so I had a lot of experiences, really bad ones and really good ones. But I know that I'm what I am because of what I lived. So, for example, with the unworthy, I went to a nun school, a German nun school, and they were horrible. They were the worst people in the world. But thanks to that, I wrote the unworthy. So, you know,
That's true. It's true to have these like really human, relatable experiences.
yeah.
You've called Tender as the Flesh a meditation on capitalism. We eat each other in a symbolic way. When did you introduce the idea of actual like cannibalism and real consumption in your
Okay.
books as a metaphor for capitalism?
Okay. Well, the thing is this, my mind doesn't work like that.
Mhm.
It's not that I was thinking about capitalism and patriarchy, and so I thought, okay, I am going to write a novel. What happened was with Tender as the Flesh specifically is that my brother, the book is dedicated to my brother, Gonzalo. Gonzalo is a chef. He works with organic food. And at that time, he had a restaurant here in Buenos Aires, a really, really good restaurant. So we get together a lot to eat his really amazing food and to have a lot of wine. I love wine. Of course.
You should come to New Zealand. We're wine country in New
Yeah.
Zealand.
I love it. I went to France recently, and it was like, oh my god, the wine here,
Oh, yeah.
please. So I have to go there also. So we get together and we talk a lot of a lot of things, because the thing was with my family is that they're all readers, and that is amazing. For example, my sister, she lives in Brazil, and I always, when we get together, I always give her as a gift a lot of books. I cannot give her, like, I don't know, shoes or whatever, because she will get really mad. It's like she needs books. So we get together with Gonzalo and we start talking about what is what you call slow food, like eating, like if you eat well, you will be less ill, maybe, and how food is being adulterated and contaminated and all this stuff. So because of these talks with Gonzalo and because of my own search, I started changing the way I ate. And in that process, at that time, I stopped eating meat here in Argentina. Argentina, it's like the mecca of the meat. Like, meat here is like a religion almost. So being a vegetarian or a vegan here at that moment in 2014, it was like really difficult, because not only you didn't have that many options, but also people will always react when you say you were a vegetarian. So what happened to me is that I start thinking about how here in Argentina we eat certain type of meat, like cow, chicken, and pig, but in other countries they eat, I don't know, in China they eat cats and dogs. I don't know if you know that, but they do. They have a festival each year. And also in India, some people, they don't eat cow because they think it's sacred. So I thought, okay, we are animals and we are made of meat. So why are we not eating now? So there, I thought about the idea of the novel, like cannibalism should be legitimate. How you say in English? Should be
Legislation?
no legit. No, I don't know how you say it. I cannot pronounce it. Should be, yeah, legalized. But I didn't have the story of Marcos, of the protagonist. So I start researching for 6 months about cannibalism. That is why I read a lot of essays about the rights of the animals, not human animals, and about how the slaughterhouse works. Although I could invent it whatever, because I don't think that slaughterhouse where they kill humans exist in our reality. So I could invent whatever. I really researched a lot about how slaughterhouse here in Argentina work, because I think it's more terrifying to understand that uh, everything is prepared for us to be slaughtered eventually. And it's funny because a reader, she sent me a podcast from United States, two guys talking about Tender is the Flesh, and one of them really liked the novel, but they start saying that the novel was not plausible because the government will never take your animals and kill them. And I was like, okay, you never lived in Latin America. Like you don't even study the whatever happened in other countries, because here in Argentina, not only the government can take your animals and kill them, but they took in the 70s your loved ones, and they torture them, and they kill them and they disappear their bodies. And also they took the babies from the women that they torture and they raped, and they took the babies that were born in how you say cautiverio. Sorry, some words in Spanish I don't know. I don't remember how you say them. In captivity. These babies born in captivity, they take them and they gave them to the rich families. So this happened here. So of course, as a Latin American, I can tell you this actually could happen.
I agree. I think looking at the slide into fascism around the world, it is not unrealistic at all. Like, look at the way that ICE is just disappearing people off the street in the United States with no judicial process, no due process. Like, it's just, they are gone. And it depends on how white they are as to how much media coverage it gets. And it's only if the media coverage gets too loud that they might reappear. But there are so many people who their families have no idea what's happened to them. It's not unreasonable. Like, if that's what you would do to children as well, like abduct children off the street, it's not a step too far to imagine
of course.
how else the rich might continue to enrich their lives, especially as global warming and the climate catastrophe gets worse. It's absolutely, completely, in my opinion, a very plausible scenario, which is why it's so horrifying. Like, that's why it's terrifying, because it feels like it could happen.
Yeah. But and also because there was a cannibalism is not like it's not a fiction. I mean, all along the history of humanity, there were the Aztecas, the Aztecs, I don't know how to say that. They had cannibalism rituals, but also in Europe they had rituals that were cannibalistics. Like, for example, if you were ill with epilepsy, the doctors will tell you that you had to drink blood of a violent criminal. Like, that is cannibalism,
Yeah.
So yeah, it could happen.
Was it disturbing for you in the research process? How did you
the research process was terrible. I cried a lot. But then when I wrote the novel, I was cold as ice because I need to be really technical.
You've said that the first page you wrote came out exactly as it's printed now.
Yeah.
Does that happen often for you, or was that like a flash in like a one-off?
The thing is with my process is that I read a lot. So getting back to the other question of capitalism and patriarchy and everything, it's not that I thought I'm going to write this novel because I want to criticize capitalism, but when I was reading the essays, there is a really important essay I read from a Colombian writer. He's called Adolfo Chaparro Amaya, and the essay, it's called, in Spanish, Pensar Caníbal, in English, Thinking Cannibalistic. I don't know, something like that. So he analyzes cannibalism, and one of the things he talks about is about capitalism. Cannibalism and capitalism, even the words are really similar, So when I was writing, I didn't thought about this, but I had all the information in my head. And I had to think about it when they start interviewing me when I won the Clarín Prize. So I started thinking, okay, this could be a metaphor of this, of that, and I like construct in my mind all the pieces of everything I read. So with the first page is the same. It's not that I was planning all the novel before. There are writers that they need to do that. They need to have this map of everything. But in my case, I have some pieces that are important, like reading these books I told you, and other fiction. For example, I read The Vegetarian of Han Kang.
I love that
She
book.
won the Nobel Prize now, but I read her in 2016. I read that book. So that book was also really important to understand how the act of stop eating meat is it's being rebel to the patriarchy in South Korea. So yeah. And when I wrote the first page, was like, yeah, this is working, and I don't know where this narrator is coming from, but I don't care because this is working. And I think that the information is there, and I just go. Sometimes I let go, because if I have everything planned, the book will be really cold.
The virus and the transition are never fully explained in the novel. How much of that backstory existed in your head? Like, how much did you know and choose to hold back in terms of, did you choose to purposely leave it vague? Or was that kind of...
Yes. Because in all my books, I play with the paradox and with the silence. Silence, that is why I read a lot of poetry, because for me, the things that you don't say and the silence are more important. They have the same importance as what you say. So, for example, in the book, the virus is real or is not. I never explain that. It's something that the reader has to decide. I write my books in the way that the readers, they have to participate, They have to take decisions when they're reading. And the same is with all the transition and all that part, because when you don't explain, when you don't have all the information, you cannot question the information. And most of the readers, they just accept that it was like that. And most of the readers, they think that the virus is real. Like they don't even think about that. They just assume it's real. And in the book, it's questioned. So I'm always playing with that, and I think it's literature has to do with an equilibrium that it's really difficult, because you have to know what to say and what not to say. For example, one big silence in the novel, it's that the novel, it's the narrator is a third person narrator focused on Marcos, the protagonist, but the narrator never names Marcos. The other characters, they say Marcos. And that silence, it's really important there. Most of the readers, they don't even realize this. But unconscious, in the unconscious, they know.
I think your ending is the greatest ending I've read in a book
Thank you.
ever. With your early readers or anybody who initially read that first draft, what were those early reactions you were getting from people close to you? Like, I assume your sister and your family read it because they're big readers. What was the reaction? I've never read anything like Tender as the Flesh.
The thing is that they've been reading other things I wrote, like poems, so they know me.
Yes.
I mean, I have like my sister, she reads my drafts, and I gave her the drafts of Tender is the Flesh. She read it, I guess, one day or two before I knew that I was a finalist for the prize. And my sister is really funny. She recorded a message saying, I hate you because I couldn't sleep all night because I was reading your fucking book and it's amazing. And I hate you because tomorrow I have to wake up really early to take my kids to the school. And so fuck you, but I love you. I was like, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that it was like really amazing. And husband, he read it also. He read it on paper. I print all the book, and we were on the beach at that time in Brazil, and he finished it there, and he was like, "Whoa." But the thing with Mariano, my husband, he's a really like slow reader, and it's really a deep reader, which is amazing because he finds the errors nobody finds, and he also asks me the questions nobody asked me. And the other readers at that time, I had like these three readers. The other reader is my amazing professor and mentor. She's called Liliana Diaz Mindurri, and I know her since I was 19 years old. Now I'm 51. And she's still reading my work. Like the new novel I'm writing now, she's the only no, she's reading it. Like I give her like 2 chapters and we discuss them. And when I was writing Tender is the Flesh, she was the first person that read the draft. And so we get together at that time, and she told me, you know what is happening is that I go to the butcher's house and I cannot get inside, and I don't understand. I think it's because of your book. And I was like, you're exaggerating. I mean, you know? So then that happened to a lot of readers, like they become vegetarians or they stop eating meat for some days or whatever. But she was like the first person that told me that. And yeah, I also, what happened is that I sent the novel to the Clarín Prize, and I gave, because I thought I was not going to win, I gave the novel to 2 writers. Of course, I pay them to do this job because it's a job that has to be paid. This I'm telling because I receive a lot of message of people that, can you read my short story and tell me what you think about it? It's like, no, I mean, this is a lot of time, you know? So I gave the novel to Gabriela Cabezón Cámara, that she's an Argentine writer and she is translated, and to Felix Brusone, another Argentine writer. And it was amazing because they didn't. It was the first thing they read that I wrote, and they gave me their comments so I could improve the draft a little bit more, So the drafts that I present to the Clarín Prize is a little bit different from the published book.
Your book, when I finished reading it, it took me weeks before I could eat meat again.
Wow.
I was so repulsed by meat. How does it feel to know that your art can elicit such a strong physical reaction?
I mean, I think it's amazing that people read the book and things happened, because the worst thing that can happen to a book is that you read it and you forget about the book completely. But I never wrote the book thinking I want to convert people that eat meat in vegetarians or vegans. And I always say this in every interview, like, it's not a pamphlet. I don't want to write. For me, a pamphlet is not literature. I don't want to tell you what you have to think. Think whatever you want, I'm exploring things in this novel, and if those things make you stop eating meat and you're happy with that decision and you're healthy, go with it. And if you want to eat a barbecue after reading the book, go with it. Like, I need iron. How you say when you don't have iron? There's
anemic?
A word. Yes, anemic.
Anemic, yeah.
I have a chronic anemic that didn't happen. I was vegetarian for 10 years and everything was fine. But perimenopause came and my body just got crazy, So that is another thing. Especially in women, we have like different periods. You cannot eat the same all your life,
Thinking about what you were saying earlier about how our lived experience contributes to the kind of work and art that you write. I'll be very interested to read your work in 10 years and see, like, having gone through now, like, the horrors of perimenopause and the frustration. And I've watched my mum go through it, and she has tried to convey how horrible it is. And she said, you just can't understand until you go through it yourself. She said the hot flushes are the worst skin, like, boiling, horrible feeling ever.
And now we have more women talking about that. There is a podcast here in Argentina that it's called, in Spanish, Encendidas. In English, the translation is lit, like lit of fire, like lit,
yeah.
light. How do you say
light?
Lit? Glowing, but glowing is not. It's like fired,
like fiery, like
fiery. Yeah, fiery.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the thing in my case is I don't have the hot flashes. What I do have, that it's why I need to eat meat now, is that I have menstruations that last 2 months.
Oh my God, you poor thing. Ugh.
2 months, and like
that's so unfair.
It's so unfair, and so many blood that I can even get out of my house.
That's
really
so unfair that you have to go through that. For what reason? It's so,
I don't know.
Oh, you poor thing.
This doesn't happen to every woman, but it does happen to some of them, and I didn't know this. So the first this type of menstruation that I had, I'd almost go to the hospital because I was like,
hemorrhaging.
Yeah, like that I'm hemorrhaging. I'm going to die. Like, I'm dying, No, it's terrible. But well,
Jesus,
life.
Do you think that once you're on the other side, you will go back to vegetarianism?
I hope so.
Presumably it will stop, hopefully.
I don't know. Yeah, at some point it will stop, but I don't know my body, what will happen with this.
I don't know how you're functioning. That is incredible.
Well, you know what? last year, in the day of my birthday, was I couldn't get up of the bed because I have like vertigo, you know.
Oh, God. Yes.
And it was because these crystals in the ears that all humans have moved. So I couldn't walk. So I went to the hospital and they explained this to me, and it says it's not terrible. You just have to move your head like that, and they explain it. But they took blood because they wanted to know what was happening to me. And the doctor, she told me, I don't know how are you alive, because your levels of iron are so so that, I mean, how are you functioning? And I was like, I don't know.
This is the mystery of being a woman, right? Is like your body goes through so much shit, and yet we all just put on a smile and get up every day and do our jobs and whatever.
And not only that, I mean, in Latin America, if you're a woman, I always say this, that is why Marcos is given a gift, a woman without vocal cords, because she is representing all the women that are silenced in the world. And especially here in Latin America, we have a lot of femicides, you know, a lot of women being killed every day by men, a lot of them boyfriends or husbands or ex-boyfriends, and a lot of women being captive in brothels, you know, and being raped every day of their lives. So, yeah, we have to not only live with this menstruation thing, but also being afraid that if you go outside to the street, they can not only rob you and kill you because they want your cell phone, something that happens here and in a lot of countries of Latin America, but they can also rape you and just throw your body, you know?
Last year, I think it was, I read Reservoir Bitches by Dalia de la Serra.
Yeah.
And that is another book that really stayed with me because I just thought she did such a phenomenal job of showing the horrors of femicide in Mexico.
And Mexico is even worse than Argentina, you know?
And I had no idea. Like, we're so ignorant in Western countries. We really are. Like, we are not exposed to the realities of what is happening in other countries, aside from other white countries, you know, like other Western countries. It's so shameful.
Well, I think the worst case is United States, you know, that even if you ask a person from United States, what country of America do you like? And they will tell you America is a country. And they don't even know that America is a continent with a lot of countries, you know? So it's like, what the fuck? What? They don't even know. I'm talking in general. Of course, you have a lot of people from United States that are great and they have really brilliant minds. But in general, it's like, what? Because, I mean, they don't care. You know?
No.
Like a lot of people, they don't know that Africa is not a country, it's a continent. Oh. You know, I was in London recently, and the man that was in the Uber, I asked him, where are you from? Because his English was not like, you know, and he told me from Africa. And I told him, what country? And he was like, what? Yes, what country from Africa? Are you from Egypt? Are you from Somalia? I started naming countries. And he was like, do you know that there are countries? Like, he couldn't believe it, you know?
Oh, that's so sad. The bar is so low.
It's really low.
So low. Speaking about The Unworthy, which I was so thrilled to read, how would you introduce The Unworthy to readers who have only known you from Tender is the Flesh?
I would say that it's also a dystopia, but it's different from Tender is the Flesh because there you have a little bit of hope and a little bit of light. Tender is the Flesh is 100% dark, and The Unworthy, you have some light. And the other thing that for me is really important is that the way it's written is really different from Tender is the Flesh. And this is something that I do a lot. The thing is that I don't have that many novels yet, but Tender is the Flesh is written with really short phrases because I want the reader to be like hit, like um, like hurt. The phrases hurt the reader. And The Unworthy, it's written with a poetic language and with a really long phrases. And that is because I want the reader to be like involved in poetry and beauty, although maybe he's reading something really dark. And also in that book, especially in The Unworthy, everything it's symbolizing other thing. For example, the dead bird. Why she is describing the dead bird with so many detail, because I'm talking about other things there. Or the cockroaches in the beginning, they're symbolizing other things. Or in the novel, you have a lot of circles. What are they meaning? Or what is the how you say in English? God, the animal that she calls Lucia. Wait, ciervo, deer. What is the deer symbolizing? So you have a lot. Every word in that novel, especially in Tender is the Flesh, also, but a lot of them was like intuitive, but in The Unworthy, everything it's saying something else. Even the grammatic is symbolizing things. Because I don't know if you realize, but in the first part of the novel, you have a lot of parentheses.
Mm.
And parentheses, they enclose. They encerrar is enclose. Wait. It's really late for my English. Encerrar.
You're doing
enclose.
amazing. Your
Yeah,
English is
enclose. The paragraph enclose, and something happens in the novel, and you don't have paragraphs anymore. And so you have a lot of those things,
It is incredible to me, this amount of detail and consideration into the structure of your writing. When you are first drafting and getting the story out, are you already conscious of those decisions, or is that something that comes through in the revision process?
The thing is that I write really slow because for me, it's more important the way I'm going to write the story than the story itself. So in the way, you have not only the narrator, but also the rhythm, but also the sound of the text. Every text in the world, even a novel or even, I don't know, whatever text you want, it has a sound. So if you write a word that doesn't that is dissonante, how you say it, that it doesn't sound well, the reader will feel it, dissonant, a word that is dissonant. Yeah. So in Spanish, I don't know in English, but Sarah Moses is a great translator, so I'm really glad with her. But of course, you always lose things in translation. And the thing is that I'm thinking about a word maybe, I don't know, days, because I have the meaning, but the sound of the word doesn't go there, One example that I always give at schools, and the teenagers start laughing, but it's real, is that in Tender is the Flesh, there is a scene, a sex scene between Marcos and the butcher, a panel. To write that scene that are only 3 pages, I read 5 books, erotic books, only to find out how others named the penis.
That's amazing.
So I read those 5 books because in Spanish you have a lot of ways of naming it, and some of them are really funny. And I decided not to use the word. So I work like that.
So,
So I saw the text. Each word is really important in the sound and the meaning and everything. And also I work with the structure of the short story. So I tried to tell a lot with less.
how much do you take out in the revision process? Or because you are so considered as you're drafting, is it fairly close to the final form by the time you finish?
Sometimes I have to add things. Like with Tenders of Flesh, I corrected when I was writing it. But what happened with Tenders of Flesh is that I didn't have the time to leave the book resting and then to correct the book with a clean mind, because I won the Clarion Prize. So I didn't have the time. With The Unworthy, I did have the time. And the first draft, they were more hermetic, a little bit more hermetic, and or more poetic. And I work it a lot with Sarah Moses, the translator. She read it in Spanish, and I think she's an amazing reader, so I gave it to her. And also I gave the draft to Felix Brusoni, this guy that read Tender of Flesh. And also now I have an agent, so my agent read the draft. And also I work it a lot with my editor, Magali Echevarne, that she's amazing and she's a writer. So that was all the difference. And I work it a lot. Yeah. It was like, I don't know how many times I read it, but I'm obsessive.
You've described The Unworthy as poetic and beautiful despite its darkness. How do you see beauty functioning inside horror, and particularly inside the almost horrifying events that the characters are going through?
Well, one of the things that I work on the novel is, where is God? God is the God that they are praying to, or God it's in other things. And I do think that the book is talking about love without naming the word love. You don't have the word love in the book anywhere. But it is talking about love as an energy, as a powerful energy. So I do think that God, or the sacred thing, it's in the writing, because she survives because of her literature.
The novel takes place in a world that is very religious and has very strict moral codes. How did your own experiences of growing up in a strict Catholic school feed into the narrative?
I mean, it's there because it's an obsession, like I was educated in a Catholic, as I told you, a Catholic school. And there what happens is that we were all girls, that is horrible. Like, you don't have boyfriends, because because you are always suspected of being a whore. And also there was this double moral, like you have to be kind with other, like Jesus and the Bible said, but at the same time everyone was horrible to everyone. So it was really an oppressive environment. And that is all in the book, because although they didn't cut my tongue literally. They did it symbolically. You couldn't discuss about, for example, religion. You had to just accept, and they were always watching you. It was horrible. Like, you couldn't even think about anything because God was also watching you. So what they wanted were girls that were submissive and ready to be married to rich guys. Horrible.
It is horrible. That is
Yeah.
horror.
Because I know some of the girls now, my ex companions. Of course, not all of them. A lot of them studied and they like had a pretty maybe interesting life. But some of them, they're still like in the same circle, like going to church and having their kids and just being like being at home. That they don't work, and it's like, what? I mean, I don't know. I couldn't live that life.
Were your family religious? Is that why you went to a Catholic school?
The thing with my family is that we were born in a mansion with butler, so they had a lot of money because my grandfather, he was a doctor and he was really famous here in Argentina, and even he funded a clinic that it has my last name, Agustina Bazterrica, and it's still on, but of course it's not of my family anymore. So we were born in this like upper class thing. So what the people from the upper class here did, they went to Catholic schools and they went to mass and whatever. But happily, my grandmother and my grandfather, they spent all the money and they went bankruptcy, you say? And they had to sell the mansion. So we didn't have money. So that was amazing in a sense because when I finished school, I had to get a job. And I get out from that bubble of rich, how you say, snob,
Privileged
fucking girl, like stupid girl. So that was amazing for my writing, and I guess that contribute to me being a writer. Also, I have to say that my grandmother, but not my grandmother that had the mansion was the mother of my father, but the mother of my mother was an amazing woman. She was one of the first women here in Argentina that studied economy at the university. There were only 2 women at the class.
Wow.
And because of that, she could support her family because she was a widow really young. I didn't know my grandfather. So she supported her kids alone. Like, that is amazing. And she was an amazing reader. She has a really big library in her house. How you say? Yeah. And she read in Spanish, of course, in English and in French. And we get together when I was a teenager and we talk about books. So, and my mother, she's also an amazing reader. So, yeah.
That's incredible to think how your life might have been different if you had grown up with money like that.
I will be married with a guy with a lot of money and having kids and being snob and really shallow, I guess.
And maybe not have written these books.
No. I mean, it's nothing wrong with having kids. I want to clarify that. It's not a criticize to the people that want to have kids. It's like the life that they wanted for me, maybe, And no, I will kill myself.
Same. That would not be for me. I've spoken to a few different writers on this podcast about this expectation of what a woman should be and do, and the question of having children or not. And it's probably no coincidence that none of the people I've spoken to have children. They're child-free by choice, but a lot of those societal pressures and this fucking weird obsession with women having children is a theme that comes through in a lot of their work. Like this weird obsession with birth rate. It's so weird.
In my case, it wasn't a choice. I want to clarify that. But even though I read a really important essay to write The Unworthy, that it's called Caliban and the Witch from Silvia Federici. I don't know if you read it, but it's amazing because she analyzes why women were burned and they were accused of being witches. And one of her hypotheses is that with capitalism, they had to take all the power that women had and all the knowledge that they had with all the ancestral knowledge, with the plants, curing and killing and whatever with the plants, because they need women to have children because they needed cheap labor. Capitalism need cheap labor. So that is one of the hypotheses of this, women, we should have children because if not, all the system will collapse.
You talked about how in-depth your research process was for Tender as the Flesh, how you spent 6 months reading books and essays. What was the process like for The Unworthy?
Well, with The Unworthy, I had the idea in 2018 when I went to Cusco to a book fair. And since I study art history, of course, I love art and I go to a lot of museums. But I went to this museum that now is a museum, but at the moment was a monastery where nuns lived in the past. And they had this amazing Cusqueñan art that it's like, and they have this, wait, I'm going to show you, this type of iconography that I love, that they're called ángeles arcabuceros, are angels with arcabuces. I don't know if you see that.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
So the arcabuz are these really antique arms, and they're dressed with like a Baroque clothes, and I love them. So I went to this museum only to see these guys.
Wow.
And when I was there, I was the only tourist. And I turned around and I saw a nun praying, and I almost died of a heart attack because it wasn't a monastery anymore. It was a museum. So I get near the nun, and it was a mannequin, and it was even sinister that it was a mannequin. So I get out from there, and I thought I have to write about nuns because of my history. And so the first ideas are always commonplaces, like things that were written a lot of times, and you read them a lot. So I need always to have like pieces, like mental pieces, to know how to write it. So I read this essay from Silvia Federici, Caliban and the Witch. I read another essay that I have it here in this bookshelf, that it's called Silent Spring from Rachel Carson. And she talks about how pesticides were made, and the consequences of that is that now we don't have a lot of insects or animals because they die because of the pesticides. And I also reread parts of the Bible. I have a Bible here because when I studied in university, I had to go to the final exams with the Bible, because you need to know, because the Catholic Church was one of the great mentors for artists. So you need to read the Bible to understand a lot of works of art. So I read parts of the Bible, and I also was reading El Quijote from Cervantes, the classic book, and he talks there about the La Santa Hermandad, the saint sisterhood, I guess you could translate it. So I had like these pieces, and one day I start writing. It was like, okay, this is the narrator, really poetic. I just had like an image. Sometimes I have only an image, and then I start asking questions to the book, and I start expanding, So although I search, because I also saw a lot of documentaries of cults, because I needed to understand how a cult work. What happened with this book is that I had a lot of the information because of my experience in the Catholic schools also. Like, I don't need to know how the Catholic Church work. And although I'm not talking about Catholicism there, I really am.
Yeah, I was Catholic as a child, and as I was reading it, it was very familiar.
Yeah.
A lot of the
Yeah,
experiences.
and you have like scenes. Like, for example, when María de las Soledades put her feet in the head of another, girl. I'm talking there about St. George and the Dragon. And there is another scene where Lucia is grabbing another girl. I'm not going to spoil, but there I'm talking about La Piedad of Miguel Ángel. And you have a lot of these little scenes that you can relate them to iconography of Christian iconography, you could say.
It's fascinating to me that your books are studied in school in Argentina, because in New Zealand, and I think a lot of other Western countries, our education systems are so concerned about offending people, right? And like trying to protect and shelter the kids from anything. So in New Zealand, for example, just literally this morning, I read a headline where the indigenous people of our country are the Maori people, and their language is Te Reo. And we have made progress towards trying to right the wrongs of colonization, but certainly like barely scratching the surface of the iceberg. And now we have a very conservative right-leaning government who's trying to undo a lot of that progress. And just this morning I woke up to see that Maori words are now banned in children's books, which is so insane to me. It is so Animal Farm, like very, very George Orwell. I just can't believe, and no one wants this in our country. None of us want this. We, for the most part, the people of my country are very aligned with wanting to try and rebalance the scales of the damage caused by colonization. And so it's the fact that even the language of the indigenous people of our country is no longer allowed to be taught to children. It's amazing to me that in Argentina, books that are as challenging as yours are taught in schools. I think it's amazing. Is that normal in Argentina, do you think?
Yeah, it is, because I think that our teachers are like heroes, like really they are, because that is why when I go to talk to school, I never even talk about money with them. It's not that I'm going to charge them to go to school. I know that some writers, maybe they do that, but I don't. I go for free. Like, yeah, of course, I'm going to go to the school, although I'm giving my time. And sometimes when I went this Friday to talk to this school, it's not near my house, so it took me like 5 hours to go talk and come back. And it's a lot of time, but I do it because I really want to give back. Because here in Argentina we have public education. I went to university for free.
Wow.
And I'm talking about amazing university. The University of Buenos Aires is one of the best universities in the world. and you don't have to pay. And of course, you will always have governments, like the actual government, that they want to take that to the people of the people. They want to take that, and the actual government is fighting the feminists, for example. He's really misogynist. So you will always have people that will try to take rights from other people, and one of the rights you have is language, and language is power. And if you reduce language, you reduce reality also. So there will always be people like that. But the amazing thing here in Argentina is that because of free education, public education, a lot of people that their parents couldn't study and they had to maybe work, I don't know, as whatever, a work they didn't like, but they did it to survive. The children could study. So it's really famous, a phrase here in Argentina that it's called "Mi hijo el doctor." That doctor, it's doctor, that it's bad pronounced. Mi hijo el doctor is my child, the doctor. But it's like my child, the doctor. It's not well pronounced because here in Argentina, a lot of people came, they are immigrants. So they came, I don't know, from Italy or other countries, and they learned how to speak Spanish here. So they didn't pronounce well some words. So it's really famous, that phrase, because of this. A lot of children could study, and they could study, I don't know, medicine or being lawyers or whatever because of this. So I try to give back also, and at the same time I think that it's great for these teenagers to read a book and that usually they like, and to talk to the writer. I didn't have that opportunity in my school because of the nuns, of course. But I mean, I think it's amazing to talk to the writer, So I try to give that possibility.
I think that's amazing. You must inspire so many kids to read and write. I would have loved that as well, to read a book like yours in school and then to have the opportunity to hear from you and speak to you. That would have been very, very powerful and impactful to me.
Well,
in high school.
I have a lot of here in my house, a lot of souvenirs that they give me. That the Friday they give me a mug with the. I can show it. I have to get up and show it to you. But it's amazing what they did. I'm going to look it for you and I will show it. They give me a mug. They did a work. They do works of art. They film book trailers. And what is amazing also is that the professors, they tell me that maybe the one student that doesn't like to read, maybe he reads all the book even ahead, like he finished the book and they cannot believe it because maybe the guy doesn't read. And also I talk in schools for adults. Here we have a lot of schools for people that couldn't go to school because maybe they had to work. So they can have their title being adults. And there was this woman that she was with her kid there at school. And she told me, this is the first book I read in my life. Wow. I was like, whoa. Wow. So think about the context, maybe a single mother having to work without resources, going to school. You don't have time to read. Like reading, it's a luxury, for some people. So that the first book that she read is that and she liked it is like, yeah.
That must be a huge compliment. It
must feel good. It is.
You've talked about growing up in a reading household. When did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
Well, I've been writing before knowing what a writer was. Like when at school they taught me how to write the first phrases. I started writing short stories, and even my mother, she told me that they put these short stories in like the how you say telera. I don't know how you say it in English. In the place where they put all the advertisement and notice and
Newspaper?
like the newspaper, but that at that time was like real, like you
A
have on the
notice
wall.
board?
Yeah, notice board there. They put my short stories there, So
Wow.
when I was a teenager, I wrote poems, really bad ones. But I was always writing, yeah. So even when I wanted to do other things, the literature always brought me back.
What was a book that really stayed with you or impacted you when
A
you
lot of
were
them.
younger?
A lot of them. The first book that I read entirely by myself was Alice in Wonderland. But also there is a collection here that at that time when I was a kid, that it was called Robin Hood. It was a yellow collection, and you have classics. And there, my mother read me a book that it's called Artemito and the Princess. It was about a little dragon and a princess. It was beautiful. But I also read a book that it's called Papaito Piernas Largas. I don't know the translation in English. It was a girl that wrote letters to a guy, and it was like also really beautiful. But well, when I was a teenager, I also read a lot. I don't know. There are a lot of books that for me are amazing, and now are books. There are books and authors that I study. Like for example, my favorite Argentine author, it's Juan Jose Saer, and he's dead, unfortunately. But when I read one of his novels, I had to read it again and again and again because I need to know how this guy did that. Like, how did you create this magic thing that I'm reading? I don't understand. So I need to study it. The same thing happens with Faulkner. The same thing happens with Virginia Woolf, with Toni Morrison, with Clarice Lispector, with Flannery O'Connor, with I don't know, Laurie Moore, with Shirley Jackson, with Joyce. I read Ulysses in English and in Spanish, and I finished both of them.
Wow.
With Dostoevsky, I don't know, there are a lot of them. Borges here in Argentina, like Borges is like a god. A lot.
Are you a slow reader because of
Yeah.
that? Do you take your time when you're reading?
Yes, I don't believe in this thing. Like, I have to read like 15 books a month because what I don't know. I mean, really, I prefer to read less books and really read them because I'm a writer. I need to understand, the mechanisms, the techniques. And I'm also really intense when I'm reading. Like, I'm really, really demanding. So if a book it has plausible errors, I will just get really mad. Like, I'm really passionate. Like, for example, here I have La Señora Dalloway. For example, here I have Wolf, Mrs. Dalloway in Spanish. And for example, I write the books. I
Yeah.
really and this book I read it in English, I read it in Spanish. Like here, for example, we have the first page,
Mm.
So I do this with the writers that really interest me. And yeah, I'm really intense because I work with books and I love literature. So if your book it has errors, or it's like a copy voice of other authors, I really get mad. Like, I already read Rulfo, Pedro Páramo from Rulfo. Rulfo, it's like a master. He's amazing. Why are you writing the same way as Rulfo wrote? Like, I understand that we need to copy sometimes other writers to learn, but for me, literature and art is finding your own voice. You will never be Rulfo, you will never be Borges, we will never be Shakespeare. No, they were genius, of course. But I prefer a voice that is unique, like authentic, and it's not that great that a voice that is a copy from someone else,
What would be your advice to someone who is working on becoming a writer or wants to be a writer?
Well, what I always say is that the great thing with literature and art is that there is no one path. Like, if you study the life of the writers, you can find people that were really intellectuals and readers and whatever, and you can find people that they weren't at all, So maybe what it works for me doesn't work for others, but what I think that works for a lot of writers is you have to become first an excellent reader. If you're not, because what happens with reading is that we work, our material are the words. If you read a lot, you start in enrichment, the material, you enrich the material. So you need to read, and you need to read actively. It's, for me, doesn't, if you read a lot, it doesn't matter. You need, in my opinion, you need to understand these things. Why, I don't know, Virginia Woolf in Mrs. Dalloway is repeating words in the first paragraph. What is she meaning with that? So you start finding these things, and it's amazing what you do, because the book, they get bigger, So, and that you will do it with your own work. If you're not a good reader, you're not going to read your work in a way to correct it, to edit your own work, And then, of course, you have to write every day. It's so obvious, but it's not, because the thing with writing is that a lot of people went to school and they learn how to write, but that is not creating literature. You need to know how to tell the story. But a lot of people that are not writers, they tell you, no, but I wrote this because I lived this, I experienced this, so this is okay. And it's not okay, because you need to create a fiction with rules, with a lot of decisions that you have to take. Even the sound, as I told you, of the words are important. So, you realize really quickly. Now I'm a jury here in Argentina for a contest of short stories. I had to read 220 stories, short stories. I finished today, so yeah. But I only choose 5 short stories from 220 short stories. Why? Because a lot of them were not short stories. They were just anecdotes, and they were not working with a conflict or a paradox or the silence. So there are a lot of decisions that you have to make. So in that sense, I think it's so important to write, to be connected with literature every day. Maybe you don't have time to sit down and write, but to be connected with literature. Because it's the same with a musician. A musician that wants to be solo to playing a solist. The musician has to practice every day. So with the literature is the same. So that, and having really readers that can tell you this is horrible, just this is not working, like that is so important, because we have great egos, humans in general, but writers and artists. So we need to work with our ego and having like this space to receive critics, and because that will make the work better. If you know how to receive the critics and you know how to work with that. For example, last week I gave my mentor Liliana a short story I wrote some years ago, and I was like, I don't think it's working, and I don't know why. Could you tell me why? I mean, if you find out that it's not working, so sometimes you don't see the mistake,
Is there anything you can share with us about your new novel?
I can tell you of the new novel that I'm in the middle, more or less, and it's a dystopia also, but it's really, really different from The Unworthy and Tender is the Flesh, because first of all, it takes place here in Buenos Aires, and it's like a love letter to my city and to Argentines. So the way it's written, it's 100% Argentine. So you have all the insults that we use, that we are famous because we have really good insults, and all the words that we use that are typically from here. We use a lot of words that originally they were used by prisoners in jail, and there were like secret codes for the police not to know what they were talking about, and that it's called lunfardo. So it's a way of talking that it's really Argentine. So what I can tell you is that the protagonist is a man, so you will read what he's thinking. So the writing, it's more chaotic than The Unworthy, but it's a type of chaos that I'm controlling, of course, is on purpose. And you have a lot of dialogue, different from The Unworthy, for example, that you don't have, I don't think, like even a dialogue. Here you have a lot of dialogue, a lot of characters, and all the names of the characters are from authors from Argentina and Uruguay. But I will never put like Borges, for example. I will put like maybe a name, and you have to realize that is Borges. Or, it's not that I will talk about Borges or put Borges and he will be blind and whatever. It's like another character, but only the name. And it's not horror at all. Like, yes, you have a dystopia, something extreme that is happening, but it's more like funny, maybe. It's really different. And it will be a really bad headache for translation.
I was going to say, it sounds like it will be quite a challenge to convey those nuances.
Yeah, but I don't care. It's like, this is my search.
No, that sounds amazing. I wish I could speak Spanish. I'm so in awe of people like yourself who speak multiple languages. I just wish I had learned another language.
Learn. It's never late, you
I've been learning French on and off.
Oh, well, so that is great. Yeah, I'm writing that because this is what I'm telling you. It's not only the story that matters for me. It's the way I'm going to tell the story. So the story is asking me to tell it this way. And the way I'm telling it with these insults and this type of words, it's talking about other things,
I have two final questions for you. The first one is, what does your, I bet you get asked this all the time, but what does your current writing routine look like?
Generally, I write at the afternoon and at night. But it's not that I write every day, like, I don't know, 5 hours or 2 hours or whatever. There are days that I do, but there are days that I need to be connected with my work in other sense. So maybe I'm reading a book that is related to what I'm writing. Or, for example, some months ago, I was listening to a podcast, an interview, and they were talking about this woman that she goes to different war zones, and she's a corresponsal. How you say?
Correspondent?
Yes, correspondent to in wars. And it was like, wow. And she talked about something that happened in Haiti, the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, this is something for my character. And I started like, I was cooking and I stopped cooking and I went and I wrote a scene, and that is the thing, is that maybe, maybe yesterday I just wrote 5 phrases, but to write those 5 phrases, I had to search things because I'm really concerned about plausibility. Like, I think that if you are going to write about cannibalism, you have to know everything about cannibalism. If you are going to write about cults, it's the same, like you need to know the details, because if not, it will the structure of your book will be weak. For example, there was a book I read, a really good book, until the point that the protagonist, a woman, she had to do like magic thing to stop a demon, a witchy thing to stop a demon, and she has to take blood from menstruation, from her period. But the writer wrote that she took the blood from the, how you say it, toallita higiénica, from the, sorry?
Like the tampon or the pad or something?
The pad, from the pad. So I was like, what? She cannot take the blood from the pad. It's
Doesn't work like
impossible.
that.
How cannot? I mean, you didn't even search. And
Could have used a cup, like a menstrual cup.
Yeah,
instead.
but he put a pad.
Oh, it was a male, that's why. It was a male writer.
But I couldn't believe it. It was like, if you just put that she took blood from her period and didn't clarify where, it was great. Why should you put the pad? You ruined all the book for me.
That's true.
Really?
I'm amazed that made it past the editors.
I was really, really mad about that. Really mad. It was like, what? I've been reading this fucking book and you're... No! Like, why? So, I do the same with my books, like with The Unworthy, the book was going to... They were going to take the book to the printer. And the day before, I read it again. And I was like, where does the protagonist... Why she has a knife? Why she has a knife? Where she got the knife? I was like, what is happening here? I read this book like so many times, and where she got the knife? And so I wrote where she got the knife. And what happens with that is that the structure, when you have these errors, or you have these things with the sounds of the words, or you don't care about the way you're writing it, it's like, it's not, working. It's not solid. But when you start thinking about these details, like, the structure will be flexible and solid at the same time. So that is why I think every word counts when you're writing. Like, they're really, really important.
My final question is, what do you hope your readers take away from your work when they finish one of your books?
I don't think about the readers when I'm writing. Sorry. I do
You're not the only
appreciate
one who said that.
readers. Sorry?
You're not the only author who said that. They often say
Because
that.
I think that is a trap to think about the readers, because you have to be uh you have to be truth to yourself. Like, you have to respect your own voice, and there will always be a reader that will hate your book, always. But I do love when readers tell me that they, for example, they read the book and then they give the book to a friend or a brother, sister, whatever, and they commend the book. They start talking about the book, and that happens a lot with my books. Gladly, I had, for example, there was a family that came to a book fair. I was um, some kilometers where I live in Ezeiza, and they told me that the little kid, like, I don't know, maybe 15 years old, he read the book, Tender is the Flesh, then he gave the book to the older brother, the brother gave it to the mother to the father, and they all read the book, and that was
Wow.
amazing, Then in Spain, now that I was there, a girl, she came crying to the book signed, and she was crying because her little cat died. She was killed by some dogs, and the unworthy helped her to, I don't know, make the duelo, how you say, like, like not to be as sad as she was. So she came crying and she thanked me because of the book. So, and also it's amazing when I go to schools and they written essays and they do a lot of things, even schools. I go to schools with a lot of money and schools without money at all. Like, students that if they don't go to school, they don't eat that day. So they read the book there also. And generally they read it in class because, of course, in their houses, they cannot even read because they have to work, or because the reality is really violent in their houses. So for me, going to that type of schools and teenagers that are really in difficult situations, reading the book, for me, I feel really glad and grateful and proud, Um, I mean, as I told you, like, I'm living the dream, and that is why, although maybe sometimes I'm really tired, I try to go and travel and meet the readers and, do all of this.
It sounds like you're really making a huge difference to a lot of the lives of those young people in Argentina, which is just incredible.
I don't know. I hope so. I don't know. Yeah, of course, I do think that books and readers, readers and also writers, they can change reality. Um, well, I will put a really big example. Of course, I'm not comparing, but Dante with the Divine Comedy, he changed the language, the Italian language. That is like, what? Um, so there you have an example of how a book can, change reality, actually. Um, I think that in this time that we are with so many people, I don't know how you say it in English, like being cruel and justifying cruelty, like my president, he's not my president, he's the president of my country, like, he does that. For me, it's really important to go to schools and tell them that today, to being a rebel, to being punk, is to be empathic, and to try to be sweet and to be a good person, for me it's really important. I don't know, maybe you talk to a class and maybe one student will stay with that, but well, we have to keep on doing it, until we die.
Yeah. Well, we have had an amazing conversation. It has been so incredible to talk to you. You're fascinating and you've been so generous with your time and your answers. Thank you so much for joining me. Such an enlightening conversation.